So how do you temper your aggression at the beginning? Like, how do you decide how aggressive to be during the rebuy period? I mean, obviously it's silly to just be foolish with your chips, but...
Yeah. I mean, there are two things you want to look at. One, you want to make money on your investment, and the other is you want a good shot at a bracelet. And to get the best shot at a bracelet, you kind of have to give up a little bit in terms of money. You have to put in some money bad in order to hopefully run up a stack. So I kind of walked that line kind of in between. I didn't put my money in too bad, but I tried to get my money in, flipping whenever I could.
Did you see a lot of players that were playing just too aggressively?
Yes, to make money, but if their goal is to win a bracelet and they don't care about the money, then...
Especially with the bracelet bets out there and everything.
Yeah, then it makes sense.
So how much did your style change once the rebuy period ended?
I tightened up a lot. One,
As
just
everybody
because
did, I'm sure.
just because everybody's playing better hands at that point, and two, just because your tournament life is so valuable at that point, you can't rebuy if you bust out. So
you just had to tighten up your starting hand requirements?
Yeah, and keep pots smaller, check behind some flops with hands that I normally wouldn't in a cash game or in the rebuy period, things like that.
Well, I know you do play a lot of pot limit Omaha in the cash games. What are the key differences between cash games and tournaments in PLO?
This is actually my second PLO tournament lifetime, but I've played a lot of no-limit tournaments. So
How'd you do in the first one?
It was last year, this same event, and I did not know how to play PLO.
All right, so you're
not
back
very well.
this year and you know how.
Yeah, I know how this year. So I do understand tournaments from no limit, and I'm kind of guessing at what the differences are. But the main thing I've been trying to do is stay out of huge coin flips post rebuy period, just because your tournament life is so valuable. Whereas in a cash game, you push any small edge you can. And it's easy to get all in PLO in a cash game just because there's so many 55, 45s, things like that. So I just try to keep pots small in those cases. And
how do you keep the pot small?
So like normally if I flop a hand like an overpair and a flush draw, for instance, in a cash game I usually bet and shove over a raise and expect to be 55% against a pair and a wrap, or 45% against two pair and a gut shot, something like that. But in tournament, a lot of times I'll just check behind, keep the pot small on the turn, make a decision. I get put in tougher spots that way, but it keeps my tournament life safe.
Well, tell me a little bit about the learning curve over the last year. How did you develop your PLO game?
I guess I started playing maybe 7 months ago, pretty seriously. I started out just short stacking, which is much easier, buying in real short and just playing premium hands. And there's really only two streets of decisions, pre-flop and flop.
Right.
But from that, while short stacking, I could observe everybody else playing. Also, I have Tom Dwan's my good friend, and he's an excellent PLO player. Knew it way before I did, so talking to him's helped me a whole lot. And also talking to Z and Hack Dang, who are T-Rex and You're in Danger, who kind of were learning at the same time as me. So we talked a lot about strategy and learned that way.
So what improvements did you have to make to become a really winning player?
It's a totally different game from Hold'em as far as hand reading.
Yeah.
Hand reading especially, just because it's so much harder. There's so many hand combinations that it's hard to quickly kind of calculate all of them. It's almost just takes experience, and you kind of get some feel in that area.
There's also a big difference in the bet sizing, right? Like, how do you decide how much to bet when you're playing PLO?
In PLO, much more than Hold'em, you have to price out other hands. You don't
really,
just because every hand, even a pretty bad hand, has a lot of outs against you. So usually bet bigger. It's one thing about PLO, which is not the case in No Limit for the most part, is that there are a lot of times when you have the best hand, but you still want them to fold. So usually err on the side of being over-aggressive and hope to push them out.
All right, and you said reading people is different also. How can you read people when you're playing PLO, especially like online? How do you put them on a hand?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You get to learn how people's styles.
Do you read their bet sizes?
Definitely. Bet sizes are huge, although there are a lot of good PLO players who 95% of their bets are just full pot.
That's what I've noticed also. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think a lot of them, I don't think it's bad. I think a lot of them just started doing it and keep doing it. I'm sure some of them have reasons for it, one being probably to price out draws, like I was saying. But it does make them tough to read because they're not giving anything off with bet sizes.
Is that something you do? Do you often bet the pot, or do you switch up your bets?
I switch up my bets. I usually am betting 3/5 to 4/5 pot based on flop texture. On a really dry flop, on like a paired board or a 3-heart flop, you don't really need to price out draws because you're either bluffing and just want them to fold, or you have the best hand and they don't have many outs usually.